Hey, folks, welcome to Hope Rescue Podcast. This is Tim and Kimberly.
Hello.
Your amazing hosts. Hey, we're going to talk about something. We're starting a new series.
Yeah, very excited about it.
Talk about something that is important to every one of our listeners. It's called Amore.
Amore, the original language of love.
Yeah.
I always get excited when we get to do relationship series, and honestly, we get so much feedback on those.
Yeah.
And
Good feedback
actually, it's just really, really helpful feedback because it makes you understand that, like, the foundation for almost everything and every relationship is or should be love, right?
Yeah.
And we just struggle today and probably since the beginning of time of what that looks like and what it should look like and how we are doing or not doing it.
Well, we are going to take approach to love that is a little bit different. I mean, we kind of end up in the same place as most people, at least from a biblical perspective.
Right.
But I want to approach this in an interesting way. We're calling this the original language of love. And today we're going to talk about two aspects of love, patience and kindness. But before we do, we want to talk about this concept of the original language of love. And when you hear that, what's the first thing that comes to mind? The original
I would
language
say
of love.
the book that became really famous by Gary Chapman, which is the love language book.
Wow, Gary Chapman. You remember his name.
Well, you know what? It's crossed over. It started in like church communities, but it crossed over to be just a huge bestseller because of the incredible need of understanding how to love and how to be loved properly.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's been a great tool for sure to help folks.
What are the love languages? Money.
Well, some
sex,
people those are what some people think, and that's
Yeah.
what's got us on the wrong track. But things like words of affirmation, right?
Okay.
Acts of service, receiving gifts. People interpret love as receiving gifts or giving gifts. Quality time, physical touch, which we know is a real big one.
Yeah,
So,
those are whether it's interesting. I think this is true about the language of love. That the way you show love is also the way you want to
you
receive
feel
love.
right, loved. Correct.
So you can find out from just learning about your partner.
Yes.
What they need and what they want, and then you can serve in that
Reach
area,
their heart.
even though that's not your primary
Yes.
language of love.
Yeah, and the goal is if both people are doing that, then you are experiencing the fullness of love, right?
Yeah. So when we talk about the language of love or the original language of love, the concept of language is really important. So we talk about the romance languages. The romance languages, I always thought the romance language had to do with...
It sounded super romantic, like
love
the French.
Yeah, but it's actually Romanes, which is Rome.
Oh.
It's a language that came out of Rome, which are the Latin languages.
Okay.
So, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese. I'm reading these because I can't remember. Romanian.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Roman.
Yeah, I always
Romanian.
think of French and Spanish, maybe. Yeah.
But those are
Amore.
the romance languages. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what is the original language of love. What's your favorite language, by the way?
Oh, I think I love to listen to French, and Spanish probably is my favorite.
I like English because I understand
Well,
it.
I mean, I'm just saying, like from a
trick question.
From a listening, an auditory perspective, I would say those sound very romantic to me.
I love this sound. I love to hear people speak French.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We got the chance to go there.
Italian is as
yeah,
well.
so cool. Yeah, and the Italians add a lot of physical touch with their words, so then you get the whole package.
Their language of love gets a little creepy if you don't know.
Oh no, it's awesome.
Yeah, I love how in Italy the people are so warm.
Oh yeah,
but also in a lot of Latin cultures.
Yes.
And in Mexico and Latin America, it's just a very loving. Culture. But when we talk about the language of love, the original language of love and the way we see it is what we won't call, but we will acknowledge as what is called Koine Greek. So after Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC conquered the known world at that time, he had all these military personnel all over the known world. And he wants a language where not only the military can communicate with each other, but a common language. It's called a bridge language. A bridge language is, let's say your primary language is French, but you speak Koine Greek, and Koine Greek is the common language everybody does. So it's a bridge language. In the world today, because of the colonization by the British Empire, the primary language for business is English.
It's the bridge language. Yeah.
Yeah. But really, Spanish is much more spoken. The highest spoken language is Chinese languages, because there's more Chinese people.
Makes sense.
But, the reality is that English is that kind of a bridge language in terms of doing business. So if you want to do commerce in the 3rd and 4th century, Koine Greek, and on, by the way, it was Koine Greek, especially in the Mediterranean areas, and especially in Palestine, in Rome, and so forth. But the Byzantine Empire, not to get too heavy with this, which I have a tendency to do, the Byzantine Empire was really centered around language of Koine Greek, much more than the Roman Empire in Rome. And that's why the Roman Empire fell so soon, is because they didn't have a language holding them together.
Makes sense, yeah.
Anyway.
So how does Greek define, what are the words in Greek to define
so there
love?
and beautifully does the Greek language present love in 4 different aspects. There, and I'll give the Greek words, maybe there's a familiar, if you've been a Christian for a long time, churches use these a lot. Not the first one, Eros. Eros is the word for romantic love, or even sexual love.
That's where erotic comes from.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so this idea of give and take in romance and sexuality. The second word is Storgē, which means familial love, or love for your family. It's the kind of love that you feel. I heard on K-Love today. K-Love, yeah. The announcer, I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head. I know his name. But anyway, he was talking about when he was holding his baby for the first time.
Yes.
And he said, that feeling that I had was so strong.
Yes.
He said, I actually picked up my phone, called my dad.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm getting moved here, but I called my dad and I said, Dad, sorry for questioning your love. And that's that innate love that you feel for your children.
Yeah.
It's what you feel for your parents. In healthy relationships, that can obviously be damaged, but it's that familiar love, Storgē.
Yes.
Phileo type love is the love that you feel for friends. So it's this give and take, and it takes this responsiveness. If somebody never gives to you love, and you're in a friendship with them and it's a one way, it really becomes different than phileo love. It becomes the fourth one, which is Agápē love. Agapeo love is the kind of love that it has nothing to do with the person you love in terms of the motivation. The motivation is it comes from an internal commitment to submitting to the needs of another person.
Unconditional, selfless love.
Yeah, it's
without the return.
Yeah. So if you think you're in a friendship love and the other person is not giving, you are actually doing all the giving. You have agapeo type love for them, but they don't have love for you because they're not giving.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And so what we want to do is we want to discover how to fulfill this love. Here's our working definition for the podcast when we talk about love for the next 5 weeks. And here it is. We'll mention it several times. Love is the attitude or an attitude of submission for the needs of another. So if you love someone, you are submitting to them. Eros, it could be less than that. Storgē can be less than that. Phileo can be less than that, but agapeo is superior only in the sense that it is, I am committed to your love no matter what you do.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's good.
to your needs.
Yeah.
No matter what you do.
Right. So our goal in the next few weeks is to basically break down a few things. Number one, to help you understand what love is and what it's not, because the day and age we live in, there are so many versions that are titled of what love looks like, and everybody's comparing, to see if they're chasing love, right?
Yeah, that's every song.
Yes.
Every romance song is like that.
Social media, all those things,
Yeah.
because there's a need for it, but there's so many counterfeits that are out there. So that's one of our goals. The other is to help you know when you are loving and when you are being loved, what that looks like, what that feels like, how that sounds. The third is help you discern the difference between being in love, falling in love, and true love.
Yeah.
Those are terms that I think are really important to break down.
Falling in love is scary. I don't like falling, but go ahead.
It is scary. And for that reason, because you feel like you're a little bit out of control of your own emotions.
I would say what I felt for you. I fell in love with you, but that's just a kind of a phrase we use. It doesn't really have the deep depth of meaning.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then we're going to help you gain access to the steps towards love. What are practical ways to be able to create healthy love and what that looks like in your life. And then fifth is the divine directive to love your friends and family, and the divine directive to love everyone. Because as we were talking about before this show, it's very clear that we are called to love. It is loving one another is a directive we've been given, and so we need to do it well. We need to do better.
We are responsible to love our family differently than we are responsible to loving our world, everyone in this world.
Yes.
I have a responsibility, however, to love everyone always. That's my responsibility.
Right.
And as you were saying, Kimberly, that the world is obsessed with love. It's just like wants to know what love is, wants to know how love is expressed. But it's almost, the definition the world gives is almost meaningless. And I don't know. I believe that our love was really started early. Our appreciation for each other, our willingness to commit to each other started early and quickly.
Yeah.
And
a lot of it came.
People watching would say they fell in love.
Yeah. A lot of it came from too. I think having been through broken love in our marriages before. Many of you know our story about that, or having our hearts broken in those marriages. Gave us fertile ground for wanting to get it right and to serve one another and to meet each other's needs.
Yeah.
There was a real, a beautiful, broken, tender soil that could grow something that was healthier.
Yeah, but real love, true love, takes time.
Yes.
It's hard work. It is managing your understanding of your person's needs. And then the management of your responsibility to meet those needs, as well as acting upon that. If it's all performative, it's not real love.
Right.
If it's all words you say, it's not love. It is attitude. It is contemplative, and it's actions.
And it's continually flexing, because we don't stay in that our whole life, in that zone. The goal is to get better, but, real life happens. And so it's that grace that comes with the ebb and flow of life and in change and even in our love, us being together for 20 years, we have experienced growth, because in those times of fracture or pain or change, we don't let go. Love doesn't let go. And so of each other, even when someone
in sickness and in health,
right,
richer or poorer,
right,
we've been all that.
We have. And so our society puts a twist on what love is. And we've been laughing about, because in our family, I'm not going to lie, and don't you lie in my audience. Many of you, like me, are addicted to The Bachelor. And it's such a contrived reality, false reality of what love is or what it should look like. It's a fantasy. And so we buy into the entertainment of that fantasy. But a lot of people see that as, especially if you've come from broken homes or whatever, you're trying to figure out what does love look like. And
just about The Bachelor, when The Bachelor first came out, it seemed to me, and I think it was, very misogynistic.
Yes.
It was like, this dude has all these, I
Yes.
think 25 women that are pursuing him.
Yes.
And he's like, come on, ladies. And he's kissing all these ladies and
Yeah.
some cases
And stuff.
even other stuff. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't have many choices.
Right. That's not true, Tim Scott. I'm before the Lord.
Keep going.
So anyway, we see things that are played out on television, got all these people competing for love. And in The Bachelor especially, they're given such a little time to like test the character of the person. And everybody's falling in love with this guy. It's just a hot mess. So you kind of have to let go and rebuild a foundation that is based on scripture of what love is and what it should look like.
Yeah, and they say, I'm falling in love with you, or I believe I'm in love with you. And the reality is it takes more time
my
than
goodness,
that.
yes.
And it takes exposure outside of the TV is on, the cameras are there, you're playing to the camera, you can't really get to know somebody. If there was a reality show in our home, we would act differently than when the cameras are turned off.
Right. Don't be offended, Bachelor Nation. I'm still with you.
Yeah. It's a crazy world I don't watch. I know it's on sometimes, and I walk through the house and I see it, and then sometimes I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Oh, wait. Now, who's that guy? And she goes, you want to watch it or not?
Yeah, because I'm not going to pause here.
So it's got to be deeper than that.
Yeah. So
here's our scripture.
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 13 is often called the love chapter, and the context is that the most comprehensive teaching is on the gifts of the Spirit.
Yeah, and this is called in 1 Corinthians 13, or excuse me, 1 Corinthians 12, he said, I hope you desire the greater gifts, but I want to show you a more excellent way.
Right.
And the more excellent way, no matter what your ability, no matter what your gifts or your talents, it's really about love. If you don't have love, you're a clanging cymbal. And you really have no value.
Yep.
So love is at the core of everything, should be at the core. Love for God and love for others.
Right.
That's the most
Foundation.
important law in Scripture. Love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself.
So let's say this verse in 1 Corinthians 13:4. We're going to hit hard the front end of this, which is love is patient and kind. That's where we're starting today. But let me finish. Love does not envy or boast. It's not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It's not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with truth. Love bears all things. It believes all things. It hopes all things, and it endures all things. But let's hit the love and patience.
So there's
patient,
12.
kind.
There's 12 characteristics of love. What it is and what it isn't. It is patient and kind. That's what we're going to talk about today. It is not envious, boastful, and proud, or rude. And so what we're going to do in 5 weeks is really look at these. But the first two we're going to look at today, as Kimberly mentioned, is patience and kindness. And the word patience is an interesting word. If you were to have a modern analogy for the Greek word translated patience, you would have a long fuse. So, my dad would refer to people, and my mom would refer to people as, that guy's got a long fuse, or he's got a short fuse.
Yeah.
And a short fuse is somebody who gets angry easily or gets passionate easily. I really like to listen to podcasts, and I like podcasts like Joe Rogan. He gets on there, and I don't agree with all of what he says. That's not why I like it. I like it because he lets people talk. And people say the craziest things, and sometimes they get really angry, and they just are blowing off steam, and you go, okay, I don't think this is worthy of all this emotion. But I'm a pretty passionate person, and I definitely have a lot of opinions, as Kimberly can attest. And one of the things that I love about this word, the word is macrothumia, and macro is where we get the word, for the larger, or you talk about the big picture versus the micro, but the macro means long in Greek, and thumia means to boil over. It's like you put something on the stove and it's boiling over and it's out of control. The heat needs to be turned off. That source of heat needs to be turned off. And so thumia has to do with anger, but at its very core meaning has to do with passion. It could be positive or negative. You get so passionate and you're boiling over with passion. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can't lose your senses. Well, macrothumia means a long time before overflowing with passion.
Right.
And the key here is to work on your patience by surrendering, not to work on your patience by itself, but to surrender to God and his love, and he will produce patience. So what people go is, well, okay, if love is patient, then I'm going to work on patience. No, you work on developing love, and then patience will flow from that.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people mistake is they go, okay, like especially guys will go, okay, she wants me to be patient. Okay, all right, when I'm going to count to 10 while she's, if you love somebody, you will listen.
Yeah.
If you love somebody, you will wait. If you love somebody, you will hear what they need, respond to their needs in appropriate time.
Yeah.
That's the problem with macrothumia, is it can be contrived. And when it's contrived, it's not love. And it's just performance. And you can always tell, because when people get provoked,
Yes.
they lose it.
Yeah.
And when someone has macrothumia and they have a long fuse, so to speak, they don't get so easily provoked.
Right. I mean, all of us, if you think about it in our audience, there are people in your life, maybe just one or two even, that genuinely are kind and patient with you, that you remember in your childhood, teachers perhaps, spiritual leaders, family members. And those people are the people you think of when you think of someone that's loving, when they lead naturally with that patience and kindness. And it's so important. And so we want to lean into that, obviously learning and defining love in our life with patience and kindness. But I just want to say as a caveat, it's really important because those people with a long fuse can also, that's a strength, but you also have to be careful. I'm just speaking from my own experience that you don't allow that to turn into something that looks like abuse.
Like you're a doormat.
Like you're a doormat. Exactly. Yeah. So your patience and kindness allows them and enables them to continue in bad behavior. That's not what we're talking about. Yeah. So patience and kindness can have boundaries too.
Yeah. So. And it's an interesting thing. When I met you, you had your voice. You had gained your voice back, but you had lost your voice for many years.
Yes.
And every time you spoke up, you got gaslighted or you got manipulated. You got shouted down, or you were avoided.
Right.
And so when you had your voice, that's when I met you. And, it's a powerful thing. If you think about, now I'm old enough, a lot of our audience is not, but I'm old enough to remember the early days of the feminist movement coming out of the 50s. There was women were like, you know what? We've had enough of being suppressed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the beginning. I mean, think about, suffrage, in the early part of the 20th century, 1910s and 19-teens, and going all the way up to the amendment to the Constitution where women were given the vote, and in 1920. And the reality is that women were fighting against this terrible suppression.
Yeah.
And when they got their voice, it was a powerful thing.
Yes, right.
And sometimes that goes too far, and then you suppress the other side. But the reality is, when you are patient, that doesn't mean that you should be abused.
Yes, or silenced.
Right. So the second word is love is kind, right?
Yeah. So, and that involves generosity and sympathy.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Yeah.
The word kindness is the Greek word for graciousness or generosity. It means to give.
And we all know kind people. Some of the beautiful attributes that come with that is you want to be around them. That's attractive. The kindness is attractive, and it's endearing. When someone's not kind, they're not loving. So if you're missing kindness in your life, you're probably not perceived as a loving person if you're not kind, because those two are married together. And if you want to know if you're loved, ask if you want to know if you're loved, ask if that person is kind to you. So if you're in a relationship with a spouse, a significant other, a boyfriend, girlfriend, or and you're wondering, gosh, do they really love me? The question is, are they kind to you? Is there kindness there?
Yeah. Think about this. If we define kind as generous and giving and sympathy, then it's not just giving, it's giving in sympathy so you understand the need of that person.
Right.
So a lot of times people will give gifts as a manipulative tool to get people to think that they're loved, and they buy it.
Right.
And they really believe I'm being loved.
Which is very selfishly driven, because it's about performance.
Think about the transactional love between, and I know this is kind of an old school thing to say, but a transactional love between a woman who wants to be taken care of, so she looks for a wealthy man, and the wealthy man provides gifts for her to win her love, and she is loving as long as the gifts are coming. And that's not about women. That's a transaction between two deeply flawed people. And when Kimberly realized how incredibly rich I was, she said, I'll tell you this. This is what Kimberly said to me. If you know scripture, you'll know this reference. I turned to her and I was the first one to say, I love you. And I said, I love you. And instead of her saying, I love you, you know what she said to me? Feed my sheep. So that's what Peter and Jesus were in a conversation. And Peter said, I love you, Jesus. And he said, okay, then feed my sheep. If you love me, feed my sheep. So
I was being funny.
Yeah, that was funny, but she still didn't say I love you that day.
I was waiting because I was waiting for you to
see what fat ring I would
show
buy.
How committed you were to me. Because before I fully gave my heart.
Yeah. Well, let's close it out by this.
Yeah.
If you want to know if you are genuinely loving someone or if you are genuinely loved by someone, ask these three questions. We'll close with this. Number one, think about these. Number one, do I have patience with others?
Right.
Now, patience is not a on or off switch.
Yeah.
A patience is by degrees. It's relative. So some people are naturally patient and they have a longer fuse. But, if you're growing in patience, or if the person you are in love with is growing in patience, then you're being loved.
Yes, that's good.
Number two, do I show kindness toward others?
Right.
Am I showing kindness? Not just giving them something to manipulate them, but am I generous to them? And then what's the number three?
Do I focus on the needs of others? So that not less of me, more of you perspective is loving, is focusing on those that you love rather than yourself first.
So we need next week to talk about the three aspects of pride and how that undermines your love. I hope that you'll invite a friend to listen to this podcast and this series, which will be 5 weeks. God bless you. Thanks for listening to Hope Rescue Podcast at hoperescuepodcast.org.
Bye, guys.